here for Bob. I don't think
He's coming.
he is. All right. I don't think Cheryl will be here.
She will not.
Hopefully Bob's here in a minute, so I need at least one person to be seated, or we can temporarily do two.
Who's in a rotation?
I think it's Dave.
David? Yeah. I'll second Dave.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, approval of minutes, I have a couple of them. Start with March 18th.
Make a motion to accept them.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? That's March 25.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Well, I'll second it.
All right. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Article 1. Where's the last one? Right.
Just one spelling. The discussion about long range and short range goals. Missing the E, that's it.
Third paragraph.
Second paragraph,
Second
there was a
third-
discussion
third
about
sentence.
long range and short range goals. Make a motion to accept with the E.
As amended? Yep. All right, second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right.
Oh, yeah.
Huh?
All
Yeah.
right, communications to Board of Finance, I don't think they have anything at this point. All right, public comments?
Yep, I have something that's kind of important for the Board of Finance to know, and maybe Joanne can help me here. So I watched the Board of Ed meetings, and I didn't know about it, so I wasn't able to make it in person, but I watched the whole thing and listened twice to certain sections. And Howard Theory said, and I quote, "In my communications with Haddam, it took me by surprise. Haddam said they are not interested in this," meaning HES, "as a donation." Then he continued, "Oh, you don't want it?" And then Sue Sack asked, "Is that true?" And then Theory also came back and said, Haddam did bring up the 189,000 issue that it couldn't be on the referendum. So there's 3 times during this meeting that the Board of Ed said that Haddam said that we didn't want HES for free and that we wouldn't pay just Illinois' price. Could you explain that? I think that's important for the Board of Finance to know. And at today's Board of Selectmen meeting, Liz Millardo said that she never said that. So I'm a little concerned there's a huge miscommunication between the Board of Education, Board of Finance, and the Board of Selectmen. That somebody is speaking for Haddam, putting these thoughts into Howard Theory and the Board of Ed's minds.
So Joanne, to that point, I did, because Howard's not here, I wasn't at the meeting, I did email him and say that things were said that he said, and I wanted to know some clarification. It came up during the Board of Selectmen meeting today as far as the motions go, but I wasn't present at that meeting. I don't feel it's vital to the end result of what the board voted on, but for whatever reason, Melissa feels that it was something that was said. I don't know anything about it because I wasn't there.
It's
And I
not
do
something
know
I
the
felt was
discussion
said, this
that
was said
was
by Howard
said
Theory.
about the percentage of the money going to the district and then a percent on how the money would go to Killingworth, but then the Board of Education wanted to fund the capital. So, you know, how it was all ironed out at the meeting, I wasn't there obviously because I was at a buildings committee meeting.
Well, is that appropriate right now, or
No.
should it wait?
This is public comment.
Fine.
Anyone else? All right. Finance director's report. So, finance directors, but she did send the report. She sent the actual report, but she didn't send her report. If there was anything different than what we talked about before. So, guess everyone had a chance to look at. So this is through April 10th. 3/4.
You may have talked about this at a prior meeting, but is engineering over for some particular?
Yeah, engineering's over because we didn't approve until last Monday night the line items for some of the projects. So everything just went into engineering for the time being. So when Barb gets back from vacation, she can move it. So when she does that, engineering won't be over.
Thank you.
The finance department hasn't spent any of the money yet on the software. Are you planning on doing it this fiscal year?
It won't be this year, we've really gotta look at what we're gonna need and like that. No, it won't be this year. With the transition with Georgia leaving and the new person in finance, we wanted to give Linda some time to really get her feet wet on the software and the limitations and what can be done. So I would say we'll probably look at that over the summertime, once the budgets are done.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? I don't think there's- As far as the expenditure report, there's not really much difference as far as the few lines that were expended last time. Last month. So I use is salt. Salt is over now. But public works is plenty. But for now, we're three-quarters of the way through, so next 2 months, when everything will start.
You know, quick look, the 400,000 plus for the road pavement is the big item that I could find for the rest of the year, right?
The what?
The biggest item, a big item. I mean,
As far
I'm
as,
looking at, say there's 8 to 10 more weeks of the year, we're looking at quite a bit of a surplus. I'm just trying to get a handle on what a round number might be.
Which one was that?
Well, if you look at the May payment for the road, I think it's in May. The last page, 419,275. I'm trying to find out if there are other big ticket items that we know of that are gonna be going out before the end of the fiscal year. Because at some point, the finance director is gonna say, hey, look, no more purchase orders like she's done in the past. And so spending basically comes to a halt, or new spending comes to a halt at least 30 days before the end of the fiscal year. Correct?
yeah, depends.
That's what she's done in the past.
Yeah, like June-ish, the end of May, beginning of June, but I'm trying, the only thing I just,
The state police isn't paid.
yeah, state police isn't
That's
out.
another 30.
Pardon me?
State police hasn't been paid, that's another 330,000.
The only extras that I honestly see that I don't even know if we can say count on, but obviously contingency, we haven't needed to, like, obviously all the salary lines are gonna run down, the heating, the fuel, insurance. I think when I saw contingency for salaries and I saw contingency for just the normal contingency line, there's not, I don't know, Mark, if you can be more specific, because obviously things are getting paid out.
Well, one more example, in the assessor's budget, the reval.
That has to get transferred out and go to capital,
Okay,
so we have to
So
go
we
to town
don't-
meeting on that,
okay, so
so that just has to
as
go
far
to
as this
CNR.
number is concerned though, it's, well,
It won't be extra, it'll just go to
Right,
CNR,
gotcha.
it'll just transfer over to
Thank you.
CNR, yep. And we were just gonna do that at the budget meeting. Just to
Yeah,
make it
makes sense.
clean, so that there's a tracking, so people were all on the same page.
All right, any other questions, comments?
well, I guess really, is there a way before put the final numbers together, we could get a fairly accurate surplus number? I know we can for the general fund, possibly, but.
Nothing accurate. Accurate's
No, I
very
know,
specific.
I know, I mean, it's a number you gotta be conservative with, but,
Before the budget, to project everything out, plus we're gonna be paying bills through July, that we're.
yeah.
It could be,
I'm trying to get you guys a mill decrease here, I'm scratching.
You've been paying attention up in Hartford, Mark, that is never gonna happen.
I know, yeah, I'm working at it though.
It ain't gonna happen.
I think you gotta run for a state office.
There you go, Mark.
Well, I guess you didn't take me seriously about putting the tolls on the referendum, huh?
The tolls, yeah. Wish I had the authority to do
I
that
tried.
one. I know, it was a good suggestion, I wasn't,
Yeah. Sends a message. Why don't you just email them?
Yeah.
Oh,
What good has that done?
Yuli, how many others?
All right. Selectmen's report.
Okay, so, Thursday morning, we found out that, we are going to get, Bill Warner's in the process of working on it. I'm not sure what paperwork we have to put in. But we had applied for $1 million brownfield grant in the fall on Scoville Hoe, and there was some funds left over. So the state is awarding us at no match. And we'll go through the process of what we need to, but I just want the board to be aware of it, that we're receiving another $175,000 towards Scoville Hoe, which will help us get in line for what we need to do. As everyone knows, we're identified as 5 mills in the state. We need to have legislative funding to fix the rest of it. The landlord that's interested in Scoville Hoe is still obviously interested, and we updated them that we're getting this $175,000. So I just wanted everybody to be aware. It's good news that we were getting that. The other thing is we had a meeting that I needed to have before this meeting. The Board of Selectmen set a town hearing to be held, well, actually, let me back up a little bit. The Board of Education met on Tuesday night to finalize the motion or the intentions of what they had set back at their March meeting.
Thursday night?
Thursday, what did I say, Tuesday?
Yes.
Sorry,
Thursday.
Thursday night. Lots of dates flying around.
April 11th.
And what they decided to do was to directly donate Swan Hill to the land trust. So the town doesn't need to go through the process, we don't need to go through a town meeting. It'll be directly donated to land trust. Now, Bill Warner at our last Board of Selectmen meeting last Monday night in Haddam Neck, the problem is when the property transferred over, and I just brought this for people who haven't seen it yet, you guys can pass it around if you want, it's my only copy though, so if I can get it back. When the property transferred over, the property from Haddam Elementary with the building in Swan Hill, all transferred over to the district. It was all deeded in one piece, it was never broken out. And after we had the meeting with the Board of Education, the town attorney in doing search discovered that it was all designated as one piece, and how would we set the boundary lines and what would we do? So Bill Warner has looked at this, talked to our attorney, Killingworth's attorney. Obviously Killingworth has interest in receiving some type of funds from this process, and the Board of Education attorney. And Bill is working on putting a deed together with exact points and dimensions of where one property will end and one property will start. The natural division has pretty much been where Bible Brook comes through, and there's some wetlands here. So that's why I brought this map, because I figured people visually can see it. The other piece was talked about, we want to make sure that there's access to Swan Hill for the trails. So he had come up with a couple of different options on how that would work, to be able to allow public access to Swan Hill. I had a meeting with Bill Cohen from the Land Trust last Tuesday with Bill Warner, and we went over all the options, and the preferable option for the Land Trust is option 1, which is here. And basically what it does is it draws a box around Haddam Elementary. This way it protects the property, whatever ends up happening with the property, and then there's still access to be able to get to the trails and do what they need to do. And there's actually a way here where things run through to be able to put some trails through to connect. And Bill Cowan said it's great if he can get that. It's not a deal breaker if he can't. He was happy though that they were going to be getting the property. So that was how they decided to lay it out. So in that discussion, yeah, sorry, meant to do that. I'm trying to keep everything in order and not miss a step. So the school district had their meeting on Thursday night, decided to donate that property to the land trust and have the 10 surrounding acres, more or less, and the attorneys will figure out what that is. Scott needs to have this question 3 weeks prior to referendum, for the purchase of $450,000 to be paid to RSD 17 over a three-year period starting in fiscal year 2020. So there was some discussion as to what that meant. We amended it to say starting July of 2020, so it wouldn't be in this year's budget, it would be in next year's budget. And the Board of Finance, if this passed through referendum, or you have your discussion tonight, however you want to proceed, this $450,000 is what the school's saying is will allow us to be paid over within 3 years. So when we had met last Monday, we had made a motion to set a date for a public hearing the week of April 22nd. So I needed to be able to correct that, to be able to go through the process of what's laid out and to be able to come to the Board of Finance. So today we set a public hearing for information to be May 1st, and that'll be at the firehouse at 6:30. And then we also, from that meeting, we will set a referendum. We have 30 days to set a referendum, and that referendum will be June 4th, which is a Tuesday. So those are the motions that the Board of Finance voted unanimously today to send to the Board of Finance. So obviously, the Board of Finance needs to discuss and vote if you want to move forward or not on this process. And I can answer any questions that I left out. But those are the two items that I have. So that's Rich's motion. And then this is something I will have Joanne send out to all of you about being elected officials, what you can say and what you can't say, and what you can do once the Board of Selectmen sets a date for a referendum.
So the question,
So this shall the town of Haddam purchase from Regional District 17, the Haddam Elementary School building and surrounding 10 acres more or less. That will get fine-tuned. Rich Corella's father passed away Friday night, so he was just able to get this out to me before he had to head out, for the price of $450,000 to be paid to the district over a 3-year period in equal installments starting July 1st of 2020. So that question might be tweaked. The bottom line of the motion of the Board of Education was the price and the 3-year period of time.
But not 3 equal payments, if that makes any difference. We didn't specify 3 equal payments.
Right, the Board of Finance can decide how they
Okay,
want to fund it.
that's
Yes,
fine.
yes, correct. Thank you for that clarification. You can definitely pass it around, I'm happy to share.
The public hearing you mentioned, Liz, the date of that was what?
May 1st, we're trying to do it, it's got to be that last week.
June 4th?
June 4th for the referendum, so it gives us the 30 days. Because I really wanted to try to keep the referendum on a Tuesday, because that's what people are used to.
okay, you said something about an information meeting.
Yeah, on
This
May
was-
1st, so we're going to have a public hearing.
We have an informational meeting and an official public hearing to meet the public hearing requirements.
Yes.
And then a June 4th referendum.
Correct.
The timeframe that Board of Ed gave for this process to go forward, was there a timeframe that they were looking at? Did they
Yeah.
give a time limit on it?
We did. 30th. Yeah, we had asked all of the Haddam approvals, and including the referendum, to be completed by June 30th, and the transferred property to be completed no later than October 1st. That was all part of the motion that was approved Thursday night.
Now, in the meeting where you guys discussed separating the property, was it discussed how those border lines were gonna be drawn? Because it's, I mean, as was brought up in the selectors meeting, 10 plus or minus acres could mean a lot.
Yeah, we do need to get clear on that, Sean, and I think the attorneys are just gonna have to work that out. Though I think there are some natural property lines that everyone can agree on, but
I'm just afraid without, I know we're trying to do it, saving money in the survey, without an official survey, you're gonna run into some issues, well, it's 150 feet, it's 170, you know.
Sure, it'll be though, Sean, real borders, it'll be real lines.
I-
And the problem is that, you know, they had this meeting Thursday night. Bill's out of the office with his kids for his son for vacation. So to get the real numbers to be ready for a meeting that had to be today.
No, I
We'll
understand
have
that,
them.
but, you know, I'm saying, I think, as a Board of Finance, I mean, spending a little bit of money on a survey, so we know exactly what we own, could save a lot of money down the road. That's just my thought on that, a lot of issues. down the
Whoever
road.
buys that property will have to do a survey, so it really
We
isn't
may be us.
up to, well, if we have to do it at that time, we can do it. But again, all three attorneys agreed that the legal description of the property and how it could be broken out was not required.
I just think we have a responsibility to make sure that's done.
I guess if you, it's be $15,000 is the
So,
estimate I was given.
I'm well aware of that price.
And the land trust also has an interest in making sure that these property lines are clear, so they'd be part of it.
They weren't interested in the survey.
Oh,
No, Bill agreed with this natural break
okay.
of division, so. I mean, that was again, Bill, he wasn't speaking for the land trust, but
All right.
he was in agreement.
I guess, Sean, I understand that it needs to be divided out in such fashion that there's public access.
Yes.
And it needs, and at some point in time, it needs to be clearly defined, so there's no question. I'm just curious as to why you feel that needs to be.
Well, I want to make sure it does get done at some point, you know, if we end up being the owners, we want to know where our property lines are.
Sure.
If I don't, I guess, you know, it's not our concern. But I hope that we are the owners, and I know that some in this room hopefully not the owners, but that's just a discussion for, I guess, a Tuesday in June.
Well, it's a discussion for tonight,
Yeah. No,
because it has to be decided to move it forward or not.
well, I suggest we move it forward and let the people decide.
I'll second it.
That really wasn't.
Was that a
motion.
motion?
It really wasn't a motion.
Oh, was it?
It was my suggestion that we move it.
It was
Yeah.
a comment, just that we have to discuss it, that's all tonight.
Are you, my concern with purchasing is all the other costs that go along with it. The town has to be aware of that. To buy it for $450,000 and you sort of get a 60% discount off of that because it comes back into the school system, you know, our part of the school system. It's sort of a, how can you go wrong? Except that you have to maintain it, you have to redo it, to do whatever you want with it and so on. And I wouldn't want the public to vote on this thing thinking that, wow, we get that whole thing, we're all set, we can do whatever we want with it, and it's case closed. So I guess it kind of, and I'm saying that's the selectmen's responsibility, not our responsibility, to make sure that the entire thing is laid out for the public, from,
So I do-
possible uses, possible costs.
I do have
So on and so
an
forth.
estimate from the Board of Education on what the annual expenses are, and I also have an estimate from the Board of Education on what work needs to be done. And all of that will be presented at the public hearing.
But the work that needs to be done would leave the building as is.
Yeah.
I mean, clean it up, fix it, but it wouldn't redivide it to make it suitable for town offices or,
No, no.
you know, whatever
No.
use people
East
might
Haddam
think of.
just did that, and they spent $17 million to do that. And then what are we gonna do with the buildings that, you know, we're in right now? Right?
Okay. Yeah, so I'm just saying that I don't wanna go into a hearing, I wouldn't want you to go into a hearing without having all those things. Okay, you're on top of that.
Yep.
Okay.
And I
And
actually,
I absolutely have no issue with letting the public hear the whole story and let the townspeople at large make the decision. I agree completely.
Can I just address the history of some of what happened, starting with the March 11th board meeting, which was a joint meeting with the boards of selectmen of Haddam and Killingworth, and on that night, the board signaled only its intention to initiate a process on both Swan Hill and the HES property. There were no commitments or details dealt with on that night. It was really just a signaling of intentions. The April 11th meeting was meant to clarify that, and though the night of March 11th, a donation of the HES building and property might have been hinted at, the motion reads donate/sell. And the reason for not making the HES building an outright donation is that that did not protect the interests of Killingworth. And so that is how we landed on the purchase price that is in front of you in this motion, because they had interests and they had rights that needed to be protected. And so this, we felt, was the best approach to protecting the interests of both towns.
And Killingworth also wanted to add another $200,000 to match the right of first refusal with RAC. However, that property's now been moved into conservation, and it's not developable, so they were agreeable to go ahead. I mean, we discussed that because, you know, I think that property, the right thing to do is to donate it to the land trust.
Yeah.
So,
If we, well, I still say I think the public needs to make the call, that my other part of the concern is do we have any sense, given that RAC's the only interested third party, are they still interested and will their interest continue? If this goes, you know, June 4th, it gets voted down, then that's kind of the only thing that's hanging out there. Is that still going to be hanging out there at that point in time?
I think in our conversations informally with RAC, even after the March 11th meeting, we tried to keep them posted on where the process was going, and that we had, on that night, thought 60 days might be enough. Now 60 is turning into roughly 90 days, but to the best of my knowledge, RAC is still being patient on this process. They know how things work. They know that things don't happen quickly. And so I think that's why we put the June 30th deadline for all Haddam approvals to be done, so that we don't risk losing that. And to the best of my knowledge, they are still on board with that schedule and can live with it.
Okay.
May I, you said that June 30th, all Haddam approvals for RAC, because there's...
No.
Okay,
Haddam approval for Haddam.
okay, all right.
that's why we have to have the referendum and
Yeah.
No, this has
Because-
nothing to do.
I was going to say, if RAC
Absolutely not.
becomes the
Absolutely.
developer,
we,
they have some big hoops to jump
we
through.
No,
need
no.
to,
Okay.
we need to give the Board of Education an answer by June 30th.
For Haddam,
Right.
for
Thank you.
the
And because
towns.
this meeting doesn't, the
Gotcha.
next Board of Finance meeting doesn't fall till May 20th, that wouldn't work.
Right.
So that's why we have to discuss it tonight. And then that gives us until June 30th. So that obviously the vote will be done, we'll have an answer, we'll be able to reply back to the Board of Education in the time frame that they set.
Thank you.
So we have a motion?
Sort of, or we can formalize it.
I like that.
Yeah, I
Motion
make a motion
intent,
that we pass this, you know, as a board, we pass this to the public in the public hearing, to the hearing, we'll do a meeting and a hearing, an informational meeting and hearing to decide whether or not we want to keep this.
Did Rich give you anything, because are we formally appropriating money to make this purchase?
Yes, but
Okay.
I couldn't, it's
No, I'm
$450,000,
Yeah, I'll make a
yes.
motion that we,
Yeah, that's what I just passed around.
yeah.
Well, it's
So
a
that make-
referendum question, but
Yeah,
it's-
so I'll make a motion that we forward that, as a Board of Finance too, that, the question that Liz applied, to the hearing, and approve up to $450,000 to purchase the property.
over 3 years.
over a three-year period,
Starting.
starting July
July.
1st, 2020.
Right, we still have to approve the whole number, and that is secondary, but appropriate 450 for this purchase, that would be what our authority needs to be, to move it forward.
So that's my motion to approve up to $450,000 to purchase the property.
Second.
Any
Now we go to public hearing. If the public overwhelmingly shows up and says we have no interest in the building, do we cancel the referendum then? It goes to referendum regardless, right?
Yeah,
So what's the public hearing accomplish?
same as if the public.
Educating the public, right?
Okay.
Educating the public on the price, on what the carrying costs are gonna be, on what work needs to be done. We'll have a better definition, obviously, but we will have a definition of what the borders are,
Okay.
So
And
that's
what the options, I guess, are for the building? Do we retain it, do we sell it,
Well, that's the question, do we sell it? I mean, we give them information on selling it, and we listen to what people have to say, but, once we have set the public hearing, we're going to referendum. So, unless the Board of Finance says no, then those individuals that are interested in purchasing the property can petition, just as if the Board of Selectmen said no today, those interested can go to petition, and we can go to referendum that way.
But the deadlines still hold.
Correct, which is correct.
So the public hearing is May 1st, you said?
Yep.
And then there's an informational meeting prior to?
That is the informational
Okay.
meeting.
So if the information
May
will be first
1st.
in public
Got
hearing.
it.
And then, so May 1st is you have to have a public hearing, that is it. Then you need to wait 30 days to have a vote, and that vote will be June 4th.
Any other discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
And that's all I have.
Budget.
Thank you.
Alright, so a few more budgets. We start with insurance and benefits, so if we have any, if we have our best estimates at this point. It's a 10% increase unless something showed up today.
I did not get anything from Chuck today.
So I think the revisions that we had, or the information we had as far as updated numbers was, the workers' comp was 78,253 versus 95.
So you're just, oh yeah, 72.
What was that number for?
78,253.
Same as the current?
No, it's less. Yes.
Same as right now?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, and then the other one was the liability insurance, the revised estimate was 99,360.
Yes.
So with those revisions, it would be 1,230,577. We need that budget.
And the health being a big number, are we, is that in the ballpark, you know?
That's up to 10%, I think, that
Yeah.
was the big number, one of the big numbers
mean,
we're waiting estimates on it, so.
You know, it depends on experience, but I'm thinking that we're good with that. I'm hoping it's going to be an 8, but I think we're good at 10.
Insurance.
You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I just went to the whole thing, sure. Yeah, I can get it.
Yeah, I'll make a motion and go okay it. Those two changes and a total of $1,235,77.
Could you just repeat that? I couldn't hear.
That, you got the two changes
No, just the total.
total? Okay, do I have it right, Joe?
Yep.
1,000,000.
230,577.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So, just, I guess to answer the question on WPCA. So if everybody was done every year, the total only would be $5,400. So the 8,000, I don't know where that number came from, but everybody that's on the schedule that's being done, not all being done every year, the total would only be 5,400. So there are some that,
It's a rotation.
right, they're not done every year, looks like roughly every other year. So that's where the 3745 as far as what the schedule is for.
All right, so as long as everybody's on schedule when we get there.
Right, that's what I
Everybody.
said when I added
Yeah.
them up, those that were, some are being done this year by June 30th, and then we added up the ones after 7/1, and we added it to the other number.
Do we need to vote on it?
It's already been
No,
voted
it's
on.
all set. I just want to get back to the gentleman that emailed
Got,
us.
yeah, I remember.
I emailed him that day, so
Thank you
he
very
has
much.
gotten an answer.
So, capital. So, continue the discussion we started as far as funding. So we'll pass this out for
Here.
discussion purposes.
You, Joanne and Mark both have
No.
them already, yes.
Oh,
You guys have it, no one else does, so. Because I need you guys to have it.
So I asked that to the financial advisor for some projected debt service costs, just looking at what interest might be to issue in the summertime. And for a couple different amounts, 6 million and 7 million and 6.5 million. So for discussion purposes, I picked 7 million. And their estimate for debt service for $7 million over 20 years, and over 15 would be more, is about 572,000. So the list that we just handed out is the projects that we would look at to finance with the bond issue. and kind of pick the projects that were more needed as far as when the due dates are, when the projected dates to have it, and then basically just put the balance in the roads, which might have to be tweaked slightly. So it basically, a little less than half the money would go towards catching up on some of this infrastructure, catching up public works on some of the equipment, and then the other half plus would go towards roads. And that cost would be about 500, and it would decrease slightly from there, like $10,000 a year. It's going to start at about 572. So this would be one way to be able to catch up on, well, to do some of these projects that came up this year that have grant money that we want to take advantage of, to catch up public works a little bit with some newer trucks and equipment, and then continue to work on the roads.
I get sweaty.
Yeah.
Why?
You know me by now.
Yeah, but we're not spending it, we're not writing a check for it all at once, we're breaking it out.
Hey, I'm spending a taxpayers' dollars like it was coming out of my own wallet.
Yeah, but that's a fair, I think we all are, Mark.
Okay.
But the pay-as-you-go isn't working, and when the rate was projected at what?
For 3.25 for
Yeah.
20 years.
Can I go backwards just a little? I know I do it often enough, but the balance in the current bond for roads, are we spending the 3 million that the balance says here by the end of the year?
Just approved another $1 million. I can't go any more than that because I don't know what the middle section of McTie Road's gonna cost. Because last year when they did section that they did on McTie Road, they found a natural spring. I know we talked about this. So that job ended up costing more, and Public Works, due to the flow of water under that road, they were gonna do the drainage on that road, but they can't because of the level of flooding and water that's underneath there. So it needs to be engineered to a certain degree. So I'm waiting for Jacobson for final numbers for that. Once we get into that, because I don't know what we might get hit for, when that money's left over, then the Board of Selectmen will then continue to reallocate the rest of the funds that are left from the initial bond issue to be able to fix more roads.
So what I'm getting is in a round number, there may be 2 million.
No, there's
No?
probably, by the time we probably finish this year, maybe $500,000, maybe.
You're talking this season
Yeah,
or
well,
this
the goal was,
Okay.
hopefully this season. I can't sit here and tell you for sure because there's a whole bunch of
Okay.
roads we should have done last
Right, I
year,
hear you.
but we couldn't because of rain.
Okay.
But some of those roads are starting tomorrow.
So it's basically spoken for this construction?
Yeah, and just so you know, there's a list in Fund 30,
Pardon me?
in Fund 30,
Yes. I've got it
where
here
all the
somewhere.
roads are. Now Barbara went on vacation, so she did not update the last list that the Board of Selectmen approved
Okay,
last Monday night. But all of those roads are broken out and dollar amounts are put next to those roads so that that money gets allocated out. So it's
Okay,
a
I don't know
better
what you're-
accounting.
well, I'm looking at
You're
a
looking
page entitled Capital Infrastructure, and it was printed dated 4/10.
Okay,
And the bottom right says
let me
3,111,000.
see what you're looking at, Mark, because it's easier for me to answer you. Okay.
So, I guess what, it makes sense then. This construction season is pretty much used up.
Right, and if you look at the roads that are approved, that's why we put an estimate next to each. Now, some roads, we come back. So for example, you look at, McTighe Road, section 3, right? That we came in way under budget. So we were able to allocate, but by the time we're done with McTighe Road, section 2, we're gonna use that up. So the problem though is that, again, Barbara's on vacation, she has to create these lines to put the rest of the roads in. But I have to be careful because we have to commit to the roads that we committed to under the bond ordinance to make sure we take care of those roads. So if anything goes awry, we can't spend. Now, a lot of the projects came in well under budget, which allowed us to be able to spend, money going forward to project. I would love to make the phone calls to my office go away on the roads and reallocate some of the rest of the money on some of the roads that need to be done. And now that WFS isn't gonna be, going up and down Cedar Lake anymore, I mean, Cedar Lake, Turkey Hill, all those roads have to be addressed now because, we've been kind of waiting to do that area, along with Maple Avenue East, Maple Avenue West, their road, Christian Hill Road, there's a bunch of them. So,
I'm
and we're
sure we
working
could,
off the VHB study.
could blame them for the Beaver Meadow culvert possibly too.
I don't know.
Because their trucks went through
That,
there too.
yeah, that culvert's been
For a long
going for a
time.
long, long time. But anyway, so to
Yeah.
answer your question, yes. I mean, obviously, we want to keep using that bond money, because that's what we have to use it for,
Got it.
for the roads. I probably could have a better number for you in June.
See, what I'm trying to get at is if we're looking at a $7 million bond for all kinds of trucks and bells and whistles, at one point, are we gonna be looking at another $5 million bond for roads? And quickly, that adds up to real money.
Well, there's 3.5 million for roads in this 7 million.
Okay,
3.7 million.
okay, I'm sorry.
So it's right.
So it's kind of like
The last line of infrastructure.
roads,
Bond, okay,
and the rest would be roads.
gotcha, all right. Thank you. Okay. I like the title, roads, parentheses, remaining. That means there's no others after this.
No,
Yeah, well, you're right.
That's how I read it.
But that's.
I mean, doesn't everybody else read it that
No,
way?
that's,
That's what the
yeah, that
15
is
million
correct, but
is.
then you have to spend 15 million.
then you would be passed out on the floor, I think.
Yes.
So my estimate started at 20 and then we
Gotcha.
agreed, so I just estimated.
And what I'm also trying to do, just for the record, is that the funds, I mean, some of the roads that are far gone, we need big dollars to do those. So if we have like $500,000 left over, it makes sense to try to salvage the roads that are kind of starting to turn before we get to those dollar amounts. So if you remember when the gentleman, well, you were here for the VHB presentation, right?
Yes, I was.
So when that gentleman talked about putting some chip sealing and doing some crack fill and that type of thing to help add to the longevity of the life of the road, what I'm trying to do is just recapture that so that our rating for our roads will come up, so that they're not all as depressed as they have been. That's the great tool. So that whole purpose of that VHB report was to go in and constantly update, and then that's a financial planning tool or a tool for the Board of Finance and for the Board of Selectmen to be able to use, down the road in perpetuity to say, okay, and then every time we update it, we know exactly the roads we need to do. We know that we finished XYZ road 15 years ago, so in 15 years it comes up to being on the list again, we can take care of it. The problem is we started behind the 8 ball.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't want to hog time here, but now I'd like to get nitpicking a little. And the volunteer fire department, Station 2, and apologize for that, not here to defend themselves, but I would eliminate that 80,000. And I really spent some time looking at it. And the whole building, grounds and parking lot, basically needs maintenance. Now, I remember when we had a public hearing at Planning and Zoning, when that became a firehouse, and the neighborhood wanted a buffer of evergreens around it. Well, there are towering pine trees now, that all of them should be removed. I mean, they're ugly as sin. And what it does is it's shadowing the building. The front of the building roof looks great, but don't go around back, because it's just mold and moss and whatever. The roof needs to be clean, as does the siding in the back. And the driveway and parking lot needs probably a good sweeping and crack filling, period.
I do have Public Works, I spoke to the firemen because your concern has been raised by others. And I know that the fire department has gone out to get quotes for that. I've also asked Public Works to go out and get quotes for that, and also for Haddam Neck, because Haddam Neck has some real big potholes in it, to see what the real pricing is gonna be on those. So I'm looking for better estimates. It might not need to be a total redone. It might just need to be fixed here and there.
Yeah.
But I'm double checking, just so you know, these estimates, I'm double checking them.
The station out on 81, again, crack sealing would handle that. And I think possibly some maintenance to the back of that building also, because it doesn't have a gutter. And the rain is dripping off and hitting right smack at their overhead door. And there's moss, I mean thick, green, luscious moss growing up the wall. And so maybe a gutter might help, and good power washing.
So they have a buildings committee, I don't know, you can take back if you want to
Yeah.
the president and let him know, and they can look at it.
I'm trying to mesh this in with the 10-year thing.
Yeah, 10-year needs to be revised depending on what we do here. So-
Right.
So I didn't do that part yet. So
Yeah,
things are gonna
right.
shift and it'll totally change the picture if we do something like this.
Right. And what, there's a, I mean, it sort of cleans up 2020, which only makes sense. It solves at least a part of the road issue, which is a running issue. I'm struggling with what it does for 2021. And I'm sorry, I'm just sort of scrambling as I go here. Trying to circle the things. And so in 2021, there's still quite a few. I'm just looking at the fire department. It grabs a couple of things
Yep.
from 2021, but it leaves quite a few open, got quite a few biggies open, actually, with their, I guess help me with what you're thinking here. The 2021 stuff, for instance, they say they don't want to buy they have the radio replacement down for completion in 2022. I'm sorry, 2022. So if we now move the full amount onto your financing plan list, is the plan to let the money sit there until 2022, or is your plan to get it done ahead of time? And it's done and it's off the list?
I assume that when it's funded, they would
They
move
go
the
ahead and
project
do it.
along. I know they're,
They need those radios.
Okay.
Their radios are from 2003.
It's a combination of the handhelds and putting stuff on the towers.
Right.
In that line of thought, then, would we go back, say, 2025 to do all those big ticket items for the fire department?
Well,
It just appears that the fire department and public works, at least they push some of this stuff out into a true
Yeah.
long-term plan, looking to finance and buy things at the end of that plan, rather than paying all for it in 1 year. And it's just unfortunate that not everybody put it out that long. So I guess it is a valid question. You're gonna bond it now and pay for something that they're willing to spread out over time, is that?
I don't think, I can tell you I can't speak for the fire department, but I can tell you for Public Works. The reality is he knows that in the capital plan, he's lucky to get $50,000 to $100,000 to buy trucks. So I think you were here, Sean, when I shared the cost of paying to fix those trucks.
Oh, no,
Now,
no,
some of
I'm not saying
Right.
don't fix them, I'm not saying don't fix them at all. They actually made a plan, or replace them, replace them. They actually made a plan
They
over
only-
5 years to
Right,
replace them
because-
rather than 1 year, which is, I'm commending them on.
Well,
rather
because
than-
he's happy to get something than nothing, and he knows the reality of when it comes to capital, that gets cut. So he did it more based on what we have done before, not on the fact of us bonding in the future. Just,
No, a capital plan looks out 10 years, and I think that's one way to do it. I will never push back on,
does that make sense? I'm not sure.
I will never push back on public safety items at all, trust me on that.
No, I wasn't asking you to, I was
But
explaining.
I understand I understand the difference, I'm saying, in my opinion, spreading it out over time is preferable, in my opinion, rather than uploading.
Well, if we do it the old school way, as we always have, and pay as you go, yes, because you can only afford to put so many things on the capital plan at once, and when you have,
It's saving for stuff for future, I'm buying something down the road in the future, I'm saving today for it, I'm saving tomorrow for it, I'm saving the next day for it, and on the 5th day I'm buying it.
but when
This year, we're
you
talking years.
borrow money at such a low rate to take care of a need that you have now,
I'm still borrowing
to
money.
take, you are, but the pay of what you're paying out is less, and you're able to recoup that and not have to increase taxes and be able to get the equipment that these people need to do their
If
jobs.
we borrow $7 million, we're not going to increase taxes.
No, not at all. Payments, Joe got just through telling you, what was the payment, 500 and,
I heard what he said.
right,
I
so
heard what he said.
versus $1 million versus 5, that's a decrease, that's not an increase.
And just for clarification on the fire department budget, because we're looking at two different things here. What we request in our budget for any of the items, we go to capital plan and say, in 2021, we have to buy a new engine 16 or whatever it is. So that's what our budget shows, and yes, the trucks are spread out, not as much as we'd like, but.
Because you know what the lifespan is.
If we plan 20 years and we buy a truck now and figure, put it in a 20-year plan, 20 years from now replace it. Some of the things we're seeing on the capital plan, financing being spread out, that's done by the board, that's done by capital planning committee.
I think to Liz's point, because I would, if Chris, I missed it. When he's put down his list of trucks, he hasn't really, he's tempered his list with what he thinks he can possibly get
Correct.
from the Board of Finance, not
Well, that's
what he
actually
really
unfortunate. He should
needs.
be putting out what he thinks he's gonna need to replace, and telling us what exactly he's going to need to replace. That's what needs to be, you need to hear that, I think.
Yeah,
No, I think
well,
you can
I
get-
don't disagree with that, but my point is, I don't think that's what we got.
So, and my question would be, why call it a 10-year capital plan? Just call it a capital plan at that point, because if you're not looking at over the 10 years doing it, it's just a capital plan at that point.
yeah, Public Works is actually more set up like the fire department, so he did do some more planning. His request for this year was for 1 truck, but he needs more
Right.
than
If you
one.
look at them trucks, you need some.
So he is kind of doing that, I'm trying to get everyone to do the same thing. So we made progress this year, this is still not as perfect as, laying it all out, but the fire departments are laid out, and Public Works is closer to that. So a lot of this, we're talking about bonding, is, we got 2 fire trucks in 1 year, we got a $900,000 rescue, and how much is yours, Bob? 900,000 too?
No, our rescue is about 400,000.
400,000, which is partly funded. Both due the same year, and then $2 million fire trucks the next year. So part of the looking at bonding now is how are we gonna solve that? And there is a little bit of, and again, I have to reformat, so if we bond for the radios, the 300,000 we already funded, that will slide towards one of those rescue trucks, so that's what we would propose, at the budget, to slide stuff that's already funded.
Right.
I didn't try to, okay.
So there,
yeah, I
again,
didn't-
this is, I couldn't get it all laid out, again, it all depends on approval, so I couldn't, but there is about 420,000
We already put 300
that will
aside
be,
for
Yeah, I
radios.
see
so
that now.
maybe able to solve that rescue truck with cash, but then we still have to finish funding Haddam next, and then we have those $2 million. So looking at bonding now is looking long-term, like how are we gonna pay for all this? So
Yep.
that's why we're looking at it now instead of waiting till all that stuff has to happen in 1 year. Again, we may still have to bond for something, but if it allows us to fund other things with cash,
Yep.
then
But
it solves
my
some.
question is too bad that they're not here, because I'd like to ask them, like the engine replacement, they're looking 5 years out to replace. Do they have, is that life expectancy for that engine for the next 5 years, and then we'll replace it early? Would be my question, which is fine if we can get a decent trade-in for it, then you get a trade-in for it, I don't know.
Yeah, they,
I don't
Right
think
now-
there's anything on, I don't think there's anything on here that's looking 4 years out. It's getting pulled in.
Right
I
now,
only
for
see
the-
stuff that's 2 years out that's getting pulled in.
Alright.
And I think, I don't disagree with your thinking, Sean. I think what's confusing the issue is, just like the radios. The radios, the fire department says, don't do the radios until 2022. Their rationale being, we need them now. We ought to have them now, but we're never gonna get that amount of funding that fast, so we'll push them off. And I think what I'm hearing is that Public Works kind of did the same thing.
this year he was closer
So-
to doing that, yeah.
So that they gave us a 10-year plan based on what they thought we were gonna be thinking, rather than what they really needed.
So I think as a board going forward, we don't
No,
call it a
that's
10-year
not-
plan, we just call it a capital plan.
Okay.
The fire department puts the year they want it replaced in their plan, that's the way, it's not, the fire department is actually doing the right thing, they're not looking at funding at all, they're looking, we need to replace this year, that's the way the fire departments do their capital.
Okay.
Because the year needs to be replaced, the funding, we're backing up the funding to meet it being
Yeah.
funded by that time, so our department is just giving us the clinical information, we need to replace this truck in 2023. And then.
And that has always been the traditional capital plan, just we looked ahead, this is when we're looking to place it, let's fund it over the years, save the money.
Right, so the funding part of it is I'm backing it up for what it needs to do. So the fire departments, if you look at what they submitted, they have it, each piece of equipment is in the fiscal year that they,
They really think they need it.
right, they need to buy that year. So the funding part, again, to me, the funding part is our job, or Diana's job. So the departments are supposed to tell us what they need when they need it, and our job is to figure out how to pay for it.
And looking, there's a bunching of fire department needs at 2025, all right? And that, my guess would be that we would also need another 5 million for roads. So we're talking maybe 10 million at 2025. And this is the slippery slope you do with borrowing, because we started at 5. This year, we're talking 7. A couple years down the line, we're talking 10 million.
But one of the things that happens, and Mark, to your point, because I understand you don't want to keep adding on, but one of the things that's happening is, so the transfer station, we went out and bonded, I don't know what, 6 years ago? So that debt service is starting to fall off, right? You know, the problem is that in the past, no different than the roads, a lot of these things got pushed off, and now we have this big number to work with. So I think the thought process, and if I'm speaking out of turn, I apologize, is to take the things that need to be taken care of now. Let's get them done, let's get caught up. Let's get caught up. Bonding and borrowing money is very low right now. Instead of putting out $1 million, we'll put out $565,000. And then it'll give us time, if we pre-fund some things, to catch ourselves up so that as we go, and then as that debt service falls off, we're staying in the game. The problem is that interest rates have been starting to creep,
I understand.
right? So, we can't always just say, okay, well, wait a year or two. I mean, it's the same thing with the roads. I mean, we were spending $500,000, it was everything for the Board of Finance to finally say, let's spend $500,000 a year to commit on roads. But you know as well as I do, that didn't get anything done.
Well, how about this then? For road rebuilding, we look at 20 years, but for the grinding, paving, chip sealing, we look at 5 years.
Five-year how, as far as,
Because a chip sealing is 5 to 7 years, so we'll bond it for 5 years.
ideally, that would get just straight into the public works budget.
Yeah,
Because normally you want to bond for.
Big stuff.
For reconstruction, reclaiming or reconstruction.
well, correct me if I'm wrong though, at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, you talked a lot about grinding and paving and chip sealing. And gravel roads in Haddam Neck,
No, we
coming out of the bond.
No, we weren't doing gravel roads, we were paving what was there. We weren't paving over a gravel road. We did approve additional funds because when we did the budget, we did not think that Public Works was going to be able to do more roads than what we had handled in the time frame of the construction cycle. So we did put money aside for chip sealing and repairing of roads under the bond ordinance, which we could do. But traditionally, to Joe's point, those should be more maintenance type things
Right.
of what we should be doing. But we did a bunch of roads last year that we had to do for emergency purposes. So we went through a lot of our operating to take care of some of the roads that we had to work on.
So
Going
does that,
forward, because I understand, you don't want to bond for 20 years when it's something that has a 5 to 7 year life, right?
right,
You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, you can't, yeah.
would that explain the lower number for roads in this next bond that we're talking about?
I just really solved some of the equipment issues, and then the balance went to roads. There really wasn't any
Okay.
magic to that number I came up with roads, other than that was what was left after addressing some of the.
So we can cut that about, say 3 million.
But we still have 15 million to do, so I'm not sure cutting is
That-
anything.
So where did we start? At 25 million that we needed?
Was it over 20?
Yeah, it was definitely over 20. I don't remember how much over. I want to say, I don't remember. I know it was over 20, but I don't know if it was as high as 25.
And we would take the 3.75 million off of the 15, right?
Right, exactly. So, and the 15 was an estimate, at some point we can get some better precision on that, like what did we start with, what did we do? At least by road, not by dollars, but if they're off the list.
I agree. I'm with you on the bonding, the big ticket items for the fire department. The ambulance, fire and police are my number one priority, as I'm sure as everybody else's. And roads, but the thing is that it's a growing number, and that gives me pause. And right now, we're looking at clearly, a 4 or 5 year period here in the future, the fire department's gonna need a lot of money. Just wanted to emphasize that.
Hopefully, in some good years, there's other ways to kind of get there, but we have to do something
Yeah,
to address some of this, because it's not going away, and so this was a way to kind of get farther down the road. If you remember the conversation we had Carlin did the math, it was 1.4 million a year for 10 years, if we averaged it. So this is.
Without roads.
Yeah,
Without roads, that was
Right.
0 roads, so it's. you know,
but at some
looking
point, roads may have to take a hit to get what the fire department needs.
something will have to give, no
Yes.
doubt, at some point.
Well, I just told you where my priorities are.
Right.
I mean, a topic for discussion for a longer period is we got in this situation with the fire department, we're concerned about it too. Because there was a period of time where everything of ours got, and I'm sure other stuff, but ours got pushed back. Can you delay getting a truck or you can? Yes, certainly can, up to a point. When we reach that point, and that's making the egg and the snake. It's gonna stay there every 20 years, we're gonna go through this cycle unless we take action to replace some things early and start spreading this thing back out to where it was. And certainly, we're willing to do that, it's better resale value if we do that, but this is something we need to, not during a budget cycle, but sit down and talk as a group and say, okay, here's how to best work this out. Of course, the advantage to the egg and the snake is if I'm buying 3 engines at once, hopefully I can get a better deal than if I'm buying one now, one 5 years from now. It's another point to bring up and discuss, but not for tonight.
Next subject. Infrastructure, 2020 sidewalk 154 connectivity grant. In this bond funding proposal, there's $70,750, which is the same number as the first iteration that we got of the plan. But the difference is, the first time we got the plan, in red, mind you, sidewalks across from Senior Center on 154, parentheses, length, a dozen question marks, parentheses. What change did we eliminate the question marks on? What,
The additional 425,
yeah,
I think just looking at what we have to do, that was kind of a nice to have.
is there a running footage? Because my rule of thumb for sidewalks is $10 a square foot, and they're 3 feet wide. So it's pretty easy.
They have to be, I think that,
Yeah,
3
3 feet's pretty
3 feet is not,
3 feet is not wide enough?
no.
No, see, I'm gonna get it up to date then. But that's, there's a formula.
Yeah, I do have the numbers, I had passed them out, I mean, they might be in the capital plan from Jacobson.
So what I'm saying is, we've decided on how long it's gonna be,
Basically, we were given a grant for $400,000.
and now we've gotta make it
And
work.
now we are gonna get as much sidewalk as we can. So the grant does not pay for engineering and design. So
Yeah,
we applied for a connectivity grant in 2017 and it was rejected. And before Malloy left office, he released the connectivity grants. We were not alone in that. So if you apply for a connectivity grant and you were denied, you got your money. You got a letter as Malloy left office to say, the grant we denied you in 2017, here it is. So Jacobson had gone out and done measurement to fix the sidewalk. So we're gonna do $400,000 worth of sidewalk improvement there. And they can't be repaired, they need to be dug up and expanded. So with that comes an estimate of design work of $70,750, which is what we're asking capital to fund,
okay.
okay?
Currently, the sidewalks are the responsibility of the abutting property owner.
They are
That
not.
will not take place
Sidewalks
once we
are the
replace them.
property-
That'll be our responsibility.
They are our responsibility. The state put those sidewalks in, it was up to the town to maintain them.
No, it was just like any county road. It was up to us to accept them or not. And there's a lot of county roads, where I live also, was not accepted as a town road. So now I'm a private road. The same took place with the sidewalks.
No, there's no sidewalk ordinance to take care of that. The
That's
sidewalk-
what I'm getting at, thank you.
Right,
That's what I want, is a
right.
sidewalk ordinance.
Well, were you at the meeting when everybody came and voted it down?
Voted. I didn't even know that meeting was available.
All right, so the sidewalks in town are not being taken care of by the property owners. The sidewalks in
Right.
town are being taken care of by the town. The only way to do that is to do a sidewalk ordinance.
Right, which I would like to see before we start spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. let's make it clear. It's either our responsibility or the property owners. Because it's now, we're proposing large sidewalk projects. Bridge Road,
And that is,
154 in Tylerville, 154 in Haddam.
Yep.
And then I saw one $31,000 study money for Higginham. And I did my own scientific study about Higginham sidewalks, which have been in place about 10 years plus. And I went home and asked my wife, when do you use the Higginham sidewalks? She says, you don't know? Every Memorial Day. That's one day. And then I asked where I go for coffee in the morning, and the proprietor there says, oh, Saturday mornings, there's probably a half a dozen CrossFit runners that use them. They don't get used. And what I'm getting at is I know there's people that like to walk. I'm saying generally speaking. I mean, where would you put sidewalks in Higginville?
but the whole, to your point, Mark, that's why when we were approving the Tylerville project, and we were looking at that connectivity grant, that's why we attempted to put in a sidewalk ordinance. And the residents and business owners did not want to do it. We had a public hearing about it, and we had a town meeting about it, and it got voted down. And a big concern was that the contractor that takes care of Citizens Bank was putting a lot of the snow that comes off of Citizens Bank right on that corner, and we were trying to prevent that, to have there be an issue. And we ended up working with them a little bit to fix it, but that was, to your point, why we were looking to do it. But with the sidewalks, it's part of the connectivity, it's part of creating a village, it's part of, joining things together for that.
I understand that, it's just a lot of people, like, I moved with my family here in the early 70s, and we came from the city, and we moved here specifically for the lack of sidewalks and the darkness. We don't have darkness anymore. I'd like to do something about that, but sidewalks I'd like to fight.
We're talking about our villages, we're talking about Tylerville, and we're talking about Higginham Center.
Okay.
And those are two areas, and then we're talking about Jan Sweet, forever, I got them to get clean. Those sidewalks were ignored for years, they're falling apart. I got Public Works to come in and clean them up and do what they needed to do. There's a ton of sand, the town won't even do that. But for the seniors to be able to connect, to come down the library and to do a loop, and if we're gonna do some connectivity with some of the properties, we need to fix those sidewalks. And getting $400,000 of grant to have Jacobson spend $70,000 to do it, I think is really a no-brainer. It's being funded, a large percentage by funds that are coming from the state. And we could say no, but, why would we do that when we have an opportunity to fix something? Because, somebody trips and falls on them, then we're responsible.
Point is,
I respectfully disagree with you.
we need to spend the 70 to be able to accept the 400 and
Yep.
get that work.
The grant does not cover design and engineering,
Okay.
and then the overlook. And so, that's why the second piece, we took out the 425, I figured since we're there, let's look to finish the rest, but we really don't have $425,000 to put up for sidewalks right now in that area. So let's take advantage of the grant, and if we get another grant, then we can look to do it then.
I think the debt service plan is less than perfect, but it's better than where we've been headed. Where are we, refresh my memory on this schedule. We need to get this wrapped up tonight.
I think so.
And I mean, we can, if we need to get it wrapped up tonight to get into the hearing, we can put some additional thought of our own into it. And what the public has to say at the hearing, that's the purpose of the hearing, is to hear what they have to say and readjust accordingly. So we,
By the third full week in April,
Yep.
we have to give all the departments the budget or push it back, so.
man, I'm willing to propose that we go ahead with this plan, and we still have time to tweak it if we come up with something better. But for the moment, I don't see a better plan.
I'm not gonna second your motion.
Well, and if we need a motion, well, we do need a motion. What's the right way to word the motion?
Well, we're basically approving these projects.
Okay.
And then it would have to, then we would have to amend that service budget to be able to pay for it.
Right, so, okay, but for our, to get the budget put together and move ahead then, what do we need? We need one motion to approve the projects for 2020 that are listed on this sheet,
Yes, including the roads.
including the, right. And then the next motion, which has to follow, otherwise the budget really falls apart, is to appropriate, or to put funding in the debt service in the amount of what, 572,000? That's what my notes say.
I would pick a number to bond, only because, so Southington just did 12-year bonds at 1.78, or 1.98. So I wouldn't want to tie it to a debt service number. I mean, I guess you could do it either way, to not
Right.
exceed so much in debt service, because we don't want to add to the budget. I get that, but we might do better on interest rates
Yeah,
with that.
yeah, you have to approve the budget.
Well, we have to approve the budget.
You have
No,
to
no,
approve
no.
the debt service budget. We have to make an
A total
estimate.
amount and go with it?
You have to.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
sorry. I was just trying to,
If interest rates
We're
run
not gonna
lower,
get-
then it's, we're gonna be under budget.
But they got a huge
Nice.
premium. The coupon was still 3.
yeah, they
So-
did, they got a bond premium of 441, so,
So
which is
you
nice.
can't sell bonds less than 3%. No one's, the banks aren't gonna buy them, so that's what the premium adjusts. Because the coupon's gonna be 3 or more.
Yeah.
That's just the way, that's the way they can sell them and make their money. So we're gonna pay when the premium, and again, that's assuming we get 3.25. If the interest rates move between now and July,
We won't.
Right.
then we won't get that. So it's still an estimate that we may have to deal with it, but I just picked the number 575, but it's assuming if we get that.
That's what we can borrow if we get that. And if we're limited to the 575 that we can spend, then maybe we borrow a little less and do a few less roads or a shorter sidewalk.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
All right.
Joe, if we approve this, is this all the money in the capital plan? Is there additional money in the capital plan that's not being put out to bond?
Yes. So there is more room in the budget for capital. We have to at least fund the 85,000 for assessor. Because I think that was the only thing that was more operating. You can't bond for revow and that type of thing. So- But because of the shifts in the budget, we can actually fund more than 85,000 in addition to the 575. But we need to at least fund the 85,000.
So so is it reasonable for me to make a motion? Does it accomplish what we wanna do? That we have put in the capital plan for 2020,
Capital
not
budget.
the capital budget, excuse me, for 2020. Yeah, I won't list them all, but the items listed on the bond financing plan sheet, plus the reval and the reval software, that's 60 plus 25,000.
Yes, but, and again, there is more, we can fund more capital this year because of some of the shift, like education budget is down 400,000 from last year. So even with the 575, we can fund more than that.
And we're moving around. So this off-road utility is taken care of, because we have money. The fire department moves some things around, so that's gonna be all taken care of.
I guess what we're talking about is funding fire trucks, funding
Yeah.
rescue vehicles, if we
Yeah.
have money to fund something,
That's where we should go.
those are the bigger ticket items that maybe we don't have to bond for those if we could fund some of those earlier.
So this is done.
It will be. We have to go to town meeting to reallocate, but this will be taken care of. So he included this.
Yeah, I circled this stuff.
That is already, that
That-
he
that's-
put
that-
in.
It's
Okay.
moved back into the numbers on that sheet, yes.
And then there's another off-road. This is not right. It's $30,000. I don't know why 80's there.
That's a typo, yeah.
This is a
Oh.
typo.
Oh, no, it's 80 because if you look way out 20 years,
Oh, that's right, the 50. So this is funded. This will be funded. This 30 will be funded.
Oh, it's another one,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
That'll be funded this year?
Yep. If we have to just do, we'll have to do a town meeting, whether we do it at the budget or not.
there were savings in that.
There was
other one.
savings at the last town meeting when we reallocated funds for the off-road trucks.
Okay.
So Haddam and Haddam Neck will get those.
Okay.
This is gonna come out of operating, so this knocks that down to 5 for the ice machine.
Right, I think, but we can fix that, but I think if we're looking at funding something and starting to fund those fire trucks, we probably have $500,000 that we can
I
fund.
think he's right. And then if we fund the whole entire amount for the radios, that's 300,000 that we have already that we allocated in radios that can also come in, so that would help with the fire trucks, or fire equipment.
No, the three, oh, because you got the
Prepaid
whole
300.
800.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
prepaid
I
300.
haven't even tried to consider that.
Yeah,
in
we
this
have that
number.
whole piece.
Yeah,
So that's,
I
really
see.
doesn't affect what we're gonna fund this year, that's future things, so I'll smooth all that out and update that, but it really is, what do we need, what do we want to fund, or can we afford to fund? And that service piece, assessor, and then there's probably another $500,000 that we can afford to fund. We could start funding these 2 fire trucks, the $1 million fire trucks, early.
Okay, I had a note that must be wrong. It says that the 2020, yeah, $1,030,000 on the original big sheet plan. And I put down a note, I don't know why or where it came from, but I must have heard something, could be wrong, that we could do about $500,000 without a tax change. And then we talked about,
Because I was using some of the capital, the unallocated
oh,
CMOs.
is that what I was thinking? My note isn't clear to me.
Well, without bonding, it was looking at the, yeah, I think, again, that was a rough estimate. But again, some things have shifted, so we could fund more capital. We're looking at it more clinically.
Okay,
So we could probably fund another $500,000 in capital on top of the debt service this year,
okay.
plus the 85 for the assessor.
Oh, plus the 85.
Yeah, we have to, I think, stay on schedule there because we.
No, but I mean, so the 575 plus 85 plus another $500,000,
Yeah, that's
if I'm keeping up with you.
That's roughly what keeps us about even. And again, some of it's just shifting in costs, and then the biggest piece being if education's down 4,000, that's more we can spend on capital conceptually, just to pick one number.
So we could just put that into CNR on label, right? I mean, we could make it a part of the spending plan is to put these items into the capital budget. So that means we plan to do them. Part of it is we need to set aside 575, plus the 85 for the assessors. These items plus the 85 for the assessors. We could, the second step is we need to put the 575 into debt service, so we have a way to fund that. But then if we could do more capital without picking and choosing tonight, which I'm not sure we're prepared to do, we could just put 500 into capital non-recurring undesignated.
We could, or you could start funding these 2 fire trucks at $250 apiece, which is kind of the easiest.
I think if you put it undesignated,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a topic for discussion at the town hearing. Well, why do we even have that in there? Take that out and reduce taxes accordingly.
Well,
I think we do better with it designated for something,
Yes.
or not put it in there, one or the other.
Right, because
you can hold up the sheet and say, pick what you want, because there's 50 or 100 of you out there, and you can have 100 different items, and we need to analyze it better. But, okay.
Well, it also clears your intent of where you want the money to go, right? Because that's the problem, is that you guys are having a hard time following it. Can you imagine what the public's gonna be?
Right.
So we have to really lay it out and break it out, because every time we do an allocation change, we have to go to a town meeting. And again, we can clean up some stuff prior to budget if it's easier. I'm just trying to make it as easy to understand as possible.
Well, I'll relay it out.
Yeah,
I mean, this plan is gonna be totally different if we go forward with this. Then it can be restructured, they can redo the numbers, and you can see still what's left, timing, all that type of thing. But if X amount are funded and come off here, then that plan looks different if we approve the budget. So I think it makes sense to just attach it to the projects, so we can't update this correctly if we're not assigning a project. Again, we can always change the projects if something else came up down the road, but I think assigning them as we go in is temporarily the best methodology, and then I can update this and take those 250s off here
sure.
because they're funded.
All right, well, then let's do that.
Prove they're potentially funded.
Okay, to get something on the table, do I dare just say I'll make that motion?
I think the rest of us may need clarification.
So just do them one by one. Debt service,
Okay, so, well, the first, sure, so the first motion is to put $575,000 in debt service.
I'll second the motion.
any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Secretary, need this audio too?
No, it's right here.
All right, so we all,
I need to know, but you're gonna need to put it in the minutes, so, hold on. Who voted yes?
No.
Who voted no?
No, no.
And abstain? Right. Sean? How'd you vote?
I raised my hand when you said yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
But,
Okay.
Okay, then the next motion is to put into the capital budget for this year the items listed on this bond financing plan sheet, plus the two reval items for $60,000 plus $25,000.
plus.
We can put
Plus,
the,
yeah, I think it's all, so the capital plan is approved, so the capital budget's approved at X, and the funding is, so X amounts can be funded with bonds, and X amounts is gonna be funded with,
okay. So, okay, then plus 250 each for the two volunteer fire engines, 1-13 and 3-13.
okay.
So that totals $1,160,000.
Right.
Right?
Well, debt service is independent,
Oh, debt service independent,
that's a
sorry,
whole
that's
different
right.
budget.
Oh, yeah, it actually totals
Seven.
7 million plus.
800,
Yeah.
7 million,
Right, sorry. Yep, yep, yep.
$92,000, something like that.
Right.
Because you're adding 85,000 to this 7,000,007, correct?
And 500.
And 500, yeah.
Right, so we're adding
Sorry, I missed
585 to
that.
the 7, yeah, yes, that's correct. Yep,
So that's what the capital budget
Yeah.
will be.
So it's
Yep.
7092, so 750, do you say 500? What do you got?
7,592,250. And that will be funded with $7 million in bonds, and the capital budget line in the general fund will be 585. We would need a motion for that. That's where we're gonna fund the
Right.
cash.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Three,
No,
2 names.
Abstained? So I think the last budget then would be contingency.
What's in there, 100,000?
I think we did 50.
Yeah, the recommended was 50. Prior year was 80, not counting the salary piece.
And this year we spent,
We might, yeah, go over in building, but not crazy.
yep, I'll make a motion to put 50 into contingency.
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? All right. So I think that was the last. That's what All right. Public comment?
Yes, just a question. Debt service, you said $575,000 in the debt service account.
Correct.
Is it, you have no payment for the other bonds?
No, we amended to increase it by
I
the
did that
five.
before. This is an addition.
This is in addition to what was there.
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with the capital plan. Obviously, I know it's the last item on the Board of Finance's plate when it gets to this point. And for many years, we keep on pushing back and pushing back and pushing back. And I think this year, I do understand it's something that has to be paid for, but I think we're kicking the can again down the road, and we're going to have some bad surprise in a couple of years anyway. So I don't think it's a good idea to go to bond, because capital plan, you put the money into an account, you get interest on it. In this particular case, you're going to be paying interest, and we're going to have to pay lawyer's fee, legal fees for the bond and everything else. So we're incurring an expense where we have a fund that we could put money in, and at the same time, see what we need and what we don't need. We pushed up a lot of things with this bond, but I know that a lot of things will be needed in a couple of years as well, and it's not being shown. So I think that's going to be an issue going forward. So the way I look at it, you've appropriated $7 million more, $7,800,000 for the capital plan for this year, and we're going to pay for it for another 20 years. There's some stuff that's going to come up later on that will have to be added to this, and I don't think it's a good process for the capital plan. And I assume, I didn't see it, I suppose there is a capital plan with things that have to be on next year, and there's an amount for that as well. Just disappointed that we didn't follow the capital plan process. Thank you.
Anyone else?
The other thing I'd bring up, and I say it at the risk of sounding like I'm beating a dead horse, but with the referendum for HES, one of the things that is going to be brought up is like, what are the carrying costs of maintaining the building if the town takes ownership of it? Which obviously is important information to have as you go and try to make a decision on it. the process that you'd go through as you're gonna make your decision for that vote is what are those carrying costs compared to what are the potential costs that it would offset of taking ownership of that building? And we have none of those numbers. I don't know that it's feasible to achieve them before the referendum, but the Board of Ed has not even attempted to make any estimates for what's it gonna cost to renovate Burr if and when we need it. What are the estimates if the restructuring plan doesn't go as well as they would like it to, and we have to move fourth grade to it back to the elementary school, or you have to renovate and fix the portables that are on Burr. None of those numbers have even been attempted to be provided. And I would hope and wish, I don't know if it's possible, that if we're gonna make an attempt to get the carrying costs put out publicly for the building before we go to referendum, is there any way to get some of those estimates put out, even if it's a hip shot number? For this is what a 10-room addition would cost to go to a 5-room addition or something like that. So that as you go to the ballot and you make your decision, you can say, all right, I'm gonna take ownership of this building for $500,000 and it's gonna cost $100,000 a year to own it, but it's gonna cost me this much to make, and down the road to take these kind of, for these costs if we don't have this in the future. That would be my only suggestion. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mark, I'd just like to say that I do use those sidewalks, at least once a week. At least once a week I use those sidewalks.
Congratulations.
Well, I just wanted you to know that.
Once a week.
Yeah.
That's worth, what, the millions that were spent?
Well, sure, yeah. I'd love to be able, no, I just wanted you to know that.
Do you remember the planning and zoning hearings about sidewalks and subdivisions?
I do remember that,
Yeah.
I do remember that they voted down.
You know we don't have sidewalks and subdivisions, right?
Right.
No, but again,
Before this
they're not-
goes too far.
They're not in the center of town. It's different. But anyways, go ahead. I'm tired.
Thank the public for coming out, we don't rarely get public. This is your money, and thank you for coming out and keeping us in touch.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much.
We use the road, we try to.
Get run over.
So Ed, what day of the week so I can divide, take a picture?
Every Thursday morning.
Every Thursday morning, all right.
Okay, but when the new Tylerville sidewalks are, you're gonna have to expand and walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know how excited the people at the Saybrook and Haddam are to walk down to Tylerville and to be able to do that and go to the market? Super excited. That's big for them. That is big for them.
Well, the first, sure, so the first motion is to put $575,000 in debt service.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Secretary, want this audio too?
No, it's right here.
All right, so we all,
I need to know, but you're gonna need to put it in the minutes, so, hold on. Who voted yes?
No.
Who voted no?
No, no.
And abstain? Right. Sean? What'd you vote?
I raised my hand when you said yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
But,
Okay.
Okay, then the next motion is to put into the capital budget for this year the items listed on this bond financing plan sheet, plus the two reval items for $60,000 plus $25,000.
plus.
We can put the,
Yeah, I think it's all, so the capital plan is approved, or the capital budget's approved at X, and the funding is, so X amounts can be funded with bonds, and X amounts is gonna be funded with,
okay. So, okay, then plus $250 each for the two volunteer fire engines, 1-13 and 3-13.
Okay.
So that totals $1,160,000,
Right.
right?
Well, debt service is independent.
Oh, debt service independent,
That's a
sorry,
whole
that's
different
right.
budget.
Oh, yeah, it actually totals
$7 million.
Seven.
7 million
$800,
plus. Yeah.
$7 million.
Right, sorry. Yep, yep, yep.
$92,000,
Yep.
something like that.
Right.
Because you're adding 85,000 to this 7,000,007, correct?
And 500.
And 500, yeah.
Right, so we're adding
Sorry, I
585 to
missed
the
that.
7. Yeah, yes, that's correct. Yep,
So that's what the capital budget
Yeah.
will be.
So it's
Yep.
7092, so 750, do you say 500 at the end? What do you got?
7,592,250. And that will be funded with $7 million in bonds. And the capital budget line in the general fund will be 585. We need a motion for that. That's where we're gonna fund the
Right.
cash.
so moved.
Seconded.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Three,
No.
2 names.
Abstained? So I think the last budget then would be contingency.
What's in there, 100,000?
I think we did 50.
Yeah, the recommended was 50. Prior year was 80, not counting the salary piece.
And this year we spent,
We might, yeah, go over in building, but not crazy.
yep, I'll make a motion to put 50 into contingency.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Alright. So I think that was the last. That's what Alright. Public comment?
Yes, just a question. Debt service, you said $575,000 in the debt service account.
Correct.
Is it, you have no payment for the other bonds?
No, we amended to increase it by
I
the
did that
five.
before. This is an addition.
This is in addition to what was there.
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed with the capital plan. Obviously, I know it's the last item on the Board of Finance's plate when it gets to this point. And for many years, we keep on pushing back and pushing back and pushing back. And I think this year, I do understand it's something that to be paid for, but I think we're kicking the can again down the road, and we're gonna have some bad surprise in a couple of years anyway. So I don't think it's a good idea to go to bond, because capital plan, you put the money into an account, you get interest on it. In this particular case, you're gonna be paying interest, and we're gonna have to pay lawyer's fee, legal fees for the bond and everything else. So we're incurring expense where we have a fund that we could put money in and at the same time see what we need and what we don't need. We pushed up a lot of things with this bond, but I know that a lot of things will be needed in a couple of years as well, and it's not being shown, so I think that's going to be an issue going forward. So the way I look at it, you've appropriated $7 million, more, $7,800,000 for the capital plan for this year, and we're going to pay for it for another 20 years. There's some stuff that's going to come up later on that will have to be added to this, and I don't think it's a good process for the capital plan. And I assume, I didn't see it, I suppose there is a capital plan with things that have to be on next year, and there's an amount for that as well. Just disappointed that we didn't follow the capital plan process. Thank you.
Another thing I'd bring up, and I say it at the risk of sounding like I'm beating a dead horse, but with the referendum for HES, one of the things that is going to be brought up is like, what are the carrying costs of maintaining the building if the town takes ownership of it? Which obviously is important information to have as you go and try to make a decision on it. The process that you'd go through as you're going to make your decision for that vote is, what are those carrying costs compared to what are the potential costs that it would offset of taking ownership of that building? And we have none of those numbers. I don't know that it's feasible to achieve them before the referendum, but the Board of Ed has not even attempted to make any estimates for what's it going to cost to renovate Burr if and when we need it. What are the estimates if the restructuring plan doesn't go as well as they would like it to, and we have to move fourth grade to it back to the elementary school, or you have to renovate and fix the portables that are on Burr. None of those numbers have even been attempted to be provided. And I would hope and wish, I don't know if it's possible, that if we're going to make an attempt to get the carrying costs put out publicly for the building before we go to referendum, is there any way to get some of those estimates put out, even if it's a hip shot number? For this is what a 10-room addition would cost to go, or a 5-room addition or something like that, so that as you go to the ballot and you make your decision, you can say, all right, I'm going to take ownership of this building for $500,000 and it's going to cost $100,000 a year to own it, but it's going to cost me this much to make, and down the road to take these kind of, for these costs if we don't have this in the future. That would be my only suggestion. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mark, I'd just like to say that I do use those sidewalks, at least once a week. At least once a week I use those sidewalks.
Congratulations.
Well, I just wanted you to know that.
Once a week.
Yeah.
That's worth, what, the millions that we're spending?
Well, sure, yeah. I'd love to be able, no, I just wanted you to know that.
Do you remember the planning and zoning hearings about sidewalks and subdivisions?
I do remember that,
Yeah.
I do remember that they voted down.
You know we don't have sidewalks and subdivisions, right?
Right, right.
No, but again,
Before this
they're not-
goes too far.
They're not in the center of town. It's different. But anyways, go ahead. I'm tired.
Thank the public for coming out. We don't rarely get public. Honestly, this is your money, and thank you for coming out and keeping us content.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much.
We use the road, we try to.
Get run over.
So Ed, what day of the week so I can divide the sidewalk? Take a picture.
Every Thursday morning.
Every Thursday morning. All right.
Yeah, but when the new Tylerville sidewalks are, you're gonna have to expand and walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know how excited the people at the Saybrook and Haddam are to walk down to Tylerville, to be able to do that and go to the market? Super excited. That is big for them.